the discussion. I'm going to be starting off with Alexandre Rousselet, and he's the coordinator of the regional FabLabs across France, and he's helped coordinate this panel of different contributors and organizers who will be discussing all of the different things that they've been doing in this regard. Now, Alex, one of the things that I've been really impressed with is you have a map of the different maker spaces, FabLabs, that you've been touring through and visiting, and it's incredible the amount of outreach that you personally have done. Can you talk about that real quick before we jump in and touch on everybody that you've been working with?
Yeah, of course. I will just share my screen to show you a bit more. So I switch to basically this slide. You see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, super.
Looks great.
So thank you very much for inviting me here to moderate this call. So my name is Alex. I'm from France, middle of France, and as you said, I'm involving into a different organization, which is the French FabLab network since 2016, mainly in charge of international relations. And also I co-founded the FabLab in France, and most of the people, I guess, in the makers movement or hackers movement know me because I am part of an initiative in Europe, which is VULCA, supporting the creation of makers, hackers mobility program in Europe. So you were talking about the map, and here I can very quickly show you the more than 350 makerspace, hackerspace, FabLabs, biohack labs, open workshop we visited so far with 17 different makers that I got the chance to bring with me in Europe. So we spend at least one day and night with them. And the main objective, you can check on our website, is to convince the European Commission, European Parliament, and different stakeholders in Europe to create an exchange program for makers and hackers in Europe, like artists in residency and why not tomorrow makers in residency.
Yeah, it's impressive. So I think, we were talking earlier as we were gearing up for this discussion, and this might be the biggest number of makerspaces, FabLabs, hackerspaces that I've ever heard of anybody visiting. It's pretty incredible. And with that, I'm impressed because I think that gives you a really good perspective on what's happening within France, and then more broadly within Europe, and the FabLab is really truly a global network. So, throughout the world, with the COVID-19 response, but then everything else in the maker space. Now, what have been some of your biggest standout realizations that you've had as you've looked through everything that's been happening in there?
You talk about France or in Europe in general?
Well, let's go ahead and say we'll stick with France because that's what we're talking about now. But yeah, on the French side, what have been some of the standout realizations that you've had?
If we keep focus on the COVID-19, we saw many different organizations that just started in the makers movement during the pandemic, and some other already existed before. So I would like to reach the chance to move to the panelists to give them the voice because they are more than able than me to explain their work. So to everyone that are basically online right now, I would like to remind them the agenda of this call, which will be between like 1 hour 15, with more or less 30 minutes to introduce the panelists. Also, then we're gonna have with this panelist a roundtable, panelist discussion, and then question and answer. So I really encourage everyone online to leave a question in the chat room. So you already know me, and I move to this slide. Let's back to the topic. COVID-19 timeline in France looked like this. The epidemic evolution curve in France basically started in the beginning of March and finished. It's not really finished, but let's say for 2 months around June. What I would like to highlight in this design, it's before March, as you can see here. I'll put a full screen, maybe much better. Yeah, as you can see here, most of this organization already existed before. Let's say now half of this organization fighting against the COVID existed before. And since this crisis started in France, many new initiative, association, organization appeared in France. As you can see here, some of them become from initiative to association, I mean legal entity, and some of them, like this one, for instance, started during the peak and decided to stop at the end of the confinement. So throughout this discussion, throughout this live today, we will try to better understand each of these initiatives, but also we will better understand how they succeeded somehow to converge in the same dynamic. Unfortunately, not here today, but also part of the dynamic, I would like to give some word about Axel, Dimitri, Anthony, and Yann. Axel, that most of the people know behind Heliox, she's running a YouTube channel. She made a video to explain how to make a face shield. Very simple, everybody knows that. And then she very quickly launched a platform to match makers, frontliners, and anyone able to provide the materials. In 1 month, a bit more, all these people, makers, produced, as you can see, 200,000 face shields, and it's about 10K makers, part of such platforms. So I wanted to give some word about her. So I can show you this guy, Dimitri, Monsieur Bidouille. Oh, sorry. He's quite famous on Twitter and also on YouTube. And the 16th of March, he made a tweet. Just what should we do with this situation, makers? And many of them reply. And a couple of hours after, he started this Discord, where 2,000 different makers, most of the people are makers following this guy, gathered together in the same Discord, and they started to collaborate with each other. And also to conclude, Anthony and Yann are two, let's say, independent makers that were probably the first ones, quite smart, to go on Facebook and create Facebook group. As you already know, all this Facebook group started all over the world. So for Yann, it's Maker contre le COVID. So it's like makers vs COVID. How many people come in this group? It's something like 4,000, if I'm good. Something like 4,000 people joined this group to exchange, discuss with each other about the situation, mainly making face shield. And for Visière Solidaire, it's also a lot of Facebook group that was quite well distributed all over France, and more than 5,000 makers were producing face shields. And before April, it was very local distribution, and then they started from local to national distribution. And now they are opening solidarity over the world, especially in Latin America or Africa, for instance. So I wanted to highlight their work because unfortunately they are not here today. And also just a few words about seamstress and dressmakers, especially in the west part of France, that are doing an amazing work. Now it's time to Constance to introduce her initiative.
Hi, hello everyone. First, thank you very much to the organizers for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to talk a little bit about COVID initiative. To introduce me very quickly, I'm involved especially in the French FabLab network for 7 years now. And I first got in touch with the individuals and organizations that are composing this maker movement in France by organizing the French and European FabLab festivals in Toulouse from 2015 and 2017, anticipating on the conversation we're going to have about the links inside this movement. And I'm currently a PhD student in management sciences working on the collaboration dynamics within and between FabLabs. But today I'm here to talk about a COVID initiative, which is a website that was created at the end of March by a small team of volunteers with various skills, and that were all connected and involved previously in the maker movement in France. I knew personally some of them, but not all of them, and we just were aggregate around this project. And the website aimed to make visible the diversity of the initiatives undertaken by the citizens in the most exhaustive way possible, and more particularly to highlight the action of the makers. We have aggregated data from pre-existing sheets and groups, and we also manually collected some data, but the main source of data is self-referencing spreadsheets that we opened, so that to make the action of the makers visible, and so that they could update the data themselves as they were going on. And the website lists various things, such as all the designs distributed in open source with no regards concerning their quality. We just wanted to show the mass of what's happening. But also the collective groups. We listed the different matching platforms, the support services, and what has been concretely created by whom and where. And more recently, the collective has expanded and diversified through connections and the arrival of new people. And it's been, the collective is being currently formalized in a non-profit association called Solidaire pour faire, which literally means in solidarity to make. That wanted to go more larger than just what is in the French language identified as the maker movement. Sometimes that can be kind of reducing regarding to who has been involved in manufacturing to help. And the last topic we've tackled with this team is the collection of personal stories of citizens who have participated into during the lockdown through manufacturing. And these stories are being published on our website and with the website of our media partners. And I highlighted on this slide the languages because we have translated the website in English, Spanish, and Italian. And we have one of the members of the team who's also a partner of Alexandre in the Vulca movement that is currently collecting the data and stories in Spain. And we are really willing to open this free platform as far as can help. That's it for me.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Constance. I would like now to give the voice to Bertrand, please, with Maker Faire.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. So I am Bertrand. I'm curator for Maker Faire France. We produce a Maker Faire event in France. And the first action we did was to cancel the Maker Faire Lille. And I let you imagine our sadness, and also for the makers and the public. And quickly, following the announcement of the lockdown, a question for us was how we can help people. We are not makers. I don't have a 3D printers in my office. So what can we do? And we are proposing a gallery of projects to inspire people at home during these special days, not only on the healthy, but also how you can adapt your home if you have welcome an additional person during these days, or to occupy children, or to build a mask. So we have make a gallery of projects on the Maker Faire France website. Was a solidarity project. And another question for us, it's a long question, is about the soft skills. And we believe that open badge is one way to discuss about soft skills, and to so we have created a special open badge for the makers who have fight against the COVID. And it was it's a question for the future, how we can develop the soft skills. So it's we did these two projects.
Thank you very much, Bertrand, for this introduction. Matej, please.
Hello, everybody. Thanks a lot to the organizers to give us the opportunity to talk about our stories. Very briefly, I'm a sociologist. I'm a member of Scientific Council of French FabLab Networks. So I'm a colleague of Constance, Mathieu, and Alexander. And my story is that basically before becoming a sociologist, I took part to the building of a machine, a 3D printer in 1999 in a squat. We didn't call it a makerspace because we didn't know that it existed, but basically it was some kind of makerspace. And then I followed the evolution of the movement and took part to the organization of French FabLab Network. Basically, as a sociologist, I'm supposed to study the movement at a distance without mingling with my object. But as I'm basically a maker before being a sociologist, I can't stand it, and I'm taking part actively in the organization and the coordination of all this adventure. And but still, I'm trying to take profit of my skills of sociologist in order to help the main actors of the movement, which are not me, to help them understand where they're going, what they're doing, and so on, and also to show the value of all the energy used and spent in fueling the maker movement worldwide. And also a big thank to Make Magazine and his founders and animators for all this energy spent doing this, which is, I think, a humanitarian goal. So what interests me in this crisis is that among all the havoc created in the economy by the confinement, the COVID crisis, is that there are actors who took profit from it, like I think, for instance, Amazon, which was able to sell much more goods than in usual, that because of the confinement. And also some actors were put in danger by the crisis, for instance, the tourism industry and so on. And we have this specific part of the market, which is the market of the sanitary protection devices, which could have been a place for big profits, because the demand was very high, the regulations were very low, and basically the guy who were able to produce would have been theoretically able to fix very high prices for their devices, if we reason as an economist, standard economy theory. And we've seen that basically the contrary happened. So basically everybody gave the devices for nothing, and spend much energy to work for nothing, or for the glory. And this is very interesting from a sociological and economical point of view, so to understand what does this movement, maker movement, who always existed in some kind of way, but which is some kind of way emerging as an organizing power and an organized and organizing power, what does this do to the economy, to the state, to the market, to the society as a whole? This is what interests me. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Matej. Next one, still in the French FabLab network, Mathieu, please.
Hello, so I'm very happy to be able to speak here, and thank you very much. So I started as an architect and a free software activist, and then with time I switched to 3D printing and founded 2 FabLabs. One non-profit one, and I'm now working as a fab manager, and I'm a secretary of the French FabLab networks, Réseau Français des FabLab. So I will explain you quickly what we do in the French FabLab network. So it was founded in 2015 during a FabLab festival organized by Constance and other people, with the goals that since the beginning to gather FabLabs and makers community, to represent the members of the FabLab community before policymakers and other institutions, to support the members by providing tools, help, advices, communicate, to make the movement visible, more visible, if we gather together, we are a force more important than if we stay alone. And the last one was to pool, to help the FabLabs develop projects together. So to make them share things, share material, tools, but mainly projects. So today we are more than 234 members. We are organized in 4 boards, the FabLab board, the supporters, which are not FabLabs but makers, or even people that are not in the makers movement, users, and projects. And within those boards, we are organized too in work groups, like, for example, health and disabilities, ecology, environmental impact of the FabLabs, and what can do the FabLabs for these environmental questions, and things like that. And since the beginning, we have focused on 3 values that can resume what we think and do: is learn, make, and share. So during the COVID crisis, in fact, we continued, but in a much more heavy way, what we were doing before. So to help the members of the FabLab networks to share their experiences, to help them understand what they can do, what they cannot do. We will discuss more those points later, but all the legal problems with producing health equipments. We worked on the normalization questions, and a lot of work to make the movement visible before the policy makers, mainly, and the media, because a lot of things were started from the ground locally, from FabLabs, and there were a lot of media coverage, but local media coverage, very early, and the FabLab network worked to make this visible at a national level. We were questioning about the documentation of what was happening for the future, because if you want to understand what is happening and what to make better, you have to document it. And with all these movements, we understood that something that we thought about for some time already, but it was really a crash test, this COVID crisis. And we understood that the national level was good for some part of our job, but we needed to go closer to the field. So it's for that we set this network of regional reference that you can see on the slide, to make it easier to gather information, to make contact, help FabLabs to share what they do. So we turn into this regional organization, and now we are thinking about, okay, what's next? So we will talk about it later during this live, but mainly about open health initiatives and things like that. How can we transform this crisis work into something that can last and be useful for the long term? So I think that's all for now.
Super. Thank you very much, Mathieu. Catherine, please.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and good evening to everyone. Morning for US, I think. It's nice to meet you in another context, and it's much more pleasing. I would say 2 rapid words about myself. I'm a makerhead and tinkering advocate. Because I'm involved with the equivalent of the French K-12 Uni Makerspace Network, which calls Tiers-Lieu et Deux, and a nonprofit mobile tinkering lab that I founded. And actually, I'm a fab manager in an underserved community university FabLab in the Paris suburb. And I'm also one of the many founders of Fabrique Commun, which Alex was also founded during the COVID crisis, but it just started like few days earlier than others thanks to Thomas' platform. But we were not pre-existing to the we were not pre-existing to the COVID crisis. So next, please. So it's all started with a documentation and ideas sharing group in Juggle platform, and we wanted to have it French speaking to help French makers and health workers to talk to each other and identify needs. And then developers joins, and the need of a platform for matching people appeared, and so we started together the collective Fabrique Commun, and it became a participative design and distributed fabrication platform. Next. So as non, c'est pas celle-là. Celle d'avant.
This one?
Ouais, celle-là. So as a collective, we come from different backgrounds: making, teaching, social work, research, copyleft expert, humanitarian organization, and of course, programming and digital business. And what we gathered in early March because we had the same needs to help and try to be useful to our community, like everybody else in the panel, I think. But the starting goal of our group was to build on our ability to curate and document, because a lot of us are used to that, and with the international solution that was already existing, and trying to bring them to the French makers. And we built onto our global maker network we were linked to, and we had a common goal. It was we wanted to help the helpers, and the helpers help us. Like we wanted to help the health workers who were helpers, and then we wanted to help the makers that were trying to help the health workers. Because it became obvious that it will last a little bit, and we needed a tool, and to help the maker community, and we wanted to make a tool that lasts. So because it felt so good to see all the community come together and evolve into the great. Had already have a great conscience of the impact, or the trying to commit to frugality, to reflect, to give, and to reflect on their role, and so we ask, next please. So we ask ourselves 3 questions: how to allow the survival over time of the fruits of the collective efforts in the fights against COVID, how to draw inspiration from the organization's successes and failures to create tools that will allow the makers' effort to last, and how to allow this citizen volunteer movement to self-organize, to help create a tool that effectively meet the needs of the community by working with the community. So we wanted to develop a sustainable co-constructed tool, and hence the choice to join forces with the MakerNet platform, which has existed for 5 years. The idea was to build on experience, and we wanted to help makers to be efficient and preserve their strength and support their co-construction commitments. So we draw our first draft of the V0 of the platform, which aimed to optimize the response by matching demands and makers based on the proximity within the maximum authorized distance from home, because it was mandatory during the lockdown. We couldn't go over 60 miles from our home. So to help transport the offer from the makers, it was useful. So we have tracking all the fabrication steps too, narrowing the maker offer to curated and tested design, because we tried it to build on the documentation we had done and tried to make it useful. So it's next, Alex, please. So we wanted to leave the possibility to divide an order between different makers, because if there's a lot of, if a hospital is asking a great quantity, we wanted to help dispatch the burden of the making, taking into account the inventory, machines and consumables of the makers, and embedding notification for between volunteers and the health workers that were asking for the materials, and offer documented steps and safety manual, like building on the MakerNet engine, and then trying, like others, to leave a notification to a volunteer transport network that we were partnered with. Next and last. So as the health crisis progressed, the objective of the collective and the platform evolved, but with the same goal to try humbly to contribute to the collective intelligence by helping build ties in the community beyond the tool, allow co-design of the collective response, helping information flow, whether technical, legal, and storytelling. And a new objective, build a real POC on a realistic scale with a third place of transition to research laboratories for innovation and certification and local actors to experiment the distributed fabrication. Voila.
Thank you very much, Catherine, for all this detail.
Yes, sorry,
Thomas?
it's a little long.
No, it's fine, it's fine. Please, Thomas.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Thomas Landrin. I'm based in Paris too. I'm co-founder and CEO of Druggle, Just One Giant Lab. It's an NGO developing a digital platform to facilitate the creation of knowledge community and skills community to help and develop common interest projects, especially regarding the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. So you can go to the next slide. So I don't really come originally from the maker movement. I'm a biotech researcher from academia. But I left academia to become an entrepreneur and develop environment that would be able to support open science projects and communities. And the one thing we're trying to solve with Druggle is an accessibility issue, that we have a lot of people, researchers, entrepreneurs, makers, civil servants, activists, have a lot of ideas, but they can actually go to the point where they're able to make it because they don't have enough skills, collaborators. It's very hard actually to create a community around your project. And on the other side, you have a lot of students, professionals, patients, citizens that would like to contribute but doesn't know where to start. So we're trying to bridge that gap here. Can you go to the next slide, please? So we launched about a year ago the beta of the platform, and back in February we were still in beta and trying to figure out how to make things happen, and then the crisis hit us. And so we designed Druggle really to be able to provide planetary scale mobilization tools to fight crises such as this one. So let's make it happen. So we launched the Open COVID-19 initiative on the 1st of March. I think one of the very first collaborative initiatives to be launched. You can go to the next slide. And we have divided, the one before, please. We have divided our program. Yeah, there is, or maybe are you using the updated slides? I've updated slides. Are you using or maybe you just extracted? Can I share my screen for a minute? That would be easier. Thanks. There. Perfect. So we have 5 main challenges. So it's not dedicated only to making things in a sense. We have a lot of data projects. We work also on diagnostics, people working on biotech, how to make diagnostics tests, for example, open source. One thing I didn't say, that everything that is happening on Druggle is fully open. And we worked also on treatment technologies such as syringe pumps, for example, or respirators. I'm going to go myself to the next slide. We mobilized more than 4,000 contributors on Drogo during this crisis, and just on COVID-19 itself, we had more than 1,500 active contributors, and now we have more than 150 projects. And so it's really been global. So the point is, most of those projects were not existing before. Like, people met there, and even some projects fused together. We have some of those projects that really got far because, for example, they had to connect a biohacker space, or, for example, a biotech company and the CDC, the American Authority on Disease, and they worked together, on open source diagnosis tests, and they could do that thanks to Drogo. And so we really try to connect people here, and so we launched many challenges. One of them won the open source face mask challenge also, that had a lot of success and was able to convey all the existing open source designs together, and just to have like a look at all of them, because not all of them are at the same level. And so at some point, the need for verification, peer reviewing, testing on the field was being bigger and bigger. And so that's when we reached out to APHP. Roman is here and will be able to speak of the initiative he has led. And so we partnered with them in order to provide like an ideal, straightforward way for projects that are working on health devices but don't have access, for example, to hospital environments. So we could actually work with them to understand their needs and to provide sort of feedbacks to the projects. So the COVID-19 crisis has been for us a very interesting period, because clearly it was a big scale up, but definitely, even though it was a big proof of concept, like, we showed that it was feasible to have an open community of contributors, of volunteers working together and have a very high level, of output. The same level of output that you could find normally in academic laboratories or startups. And so it's very promising for what's coming next, basically. So that's all for me. I'm giving the control back to you. And you can check Drogo on drogo.io, app.drogo.io. I'd be happy to answer questions.
Thank you very much for these details. Last one, Roman, please.
Hi everyone, thanks for inviting me. I'm not really part of the makers movement, but I tried to contribute to the care of the COVID crisis by using 3D printing. So basically, my real job is being a pediatric surgeon at Necker Hospital, and Necker Hospital is within a trust of hospitals called APHP, which is the trust of all the academic hospitals of Paris, and altogether it forms the biggest hospital group in Europe. So we treat a huge number of patients, and obviously we were confronted to a huge amount of COVID-19 patients. And during this period, despite the high reputation, at least, of the French public health system, we had the shortages in many devices, medical devices, protection devices, equipment devices, because of the rupture of the supply chains. So what in my life before COVID-19, I had two interactions with 3D printing. I use 3D printed medical devices during my surgeries, like cutting guides for bone surgery, for instance. And then I have a small lab that I have started in last November, where I do some 3D printing for models of craniofacial growth. And I have a Stratasys PolyJet 3D printer in my lab. So I had some familiarity with 3D printing. And when the crisis started, with a colleague who has a startup in Paris called Bone 3D, we thought that it would be useful that APHP would have its own production center, so that we could settle a large amount of 3D printers within this trust of hospitals, and then do some local production of something that wasn't so well defined at the beginning, but I will tell you more about it. And immediately we had interactions with two other initiatives, with Thomas that you just heard, with Juggle, and I will tell you more about it, and with two other guys, Philippe Cochin and Guillaume Tassin, who were starting an initiative called emergency.io that didn't really work out as expected, but it was an initiative that was intended to connect makers with health professionals and answer their needs and have like a targeted production of protection devices. So what we did at APHP was that we proposed to the head of APHP to buy a large amount of 3D printers and start internal production of whatever was needed. And for this, we did some prospection in private, and we managed to raise some private money. So everything was paid by private companies, and it was quite a huge amount of money. We raised about 2 million euros, and we bought 60 Stratasys FDM 3D printers, professional ones. We had about 4 months of raw materials available, and a group of 5 full-time engineers that were fully dedicated to the project for a period of 4 months as well. And what we did is that we started producing stuff with the help. The designs were coming from lots of spontaneous offers of engineers who were offering to develop many things, but also from our own team of engineers that were dealing with all the designs and centralizing them. The original team with Philippe, Thomas, and Guillaume continued to contribute by working on the designs and helping with the logistics. And then we started interacting on site with Bone 3D, which was the startup, and trying to answer the needs of the public hospitals. So what happened exactly? We had those 60 3D printers, and we were receiving lots of demands from doctors, from nurses, from lots of different health professionals. Those demands were either protection devices, medical devices, but also very simple objects like equipment objects, like pieces of drawers that were not available anymore, stuff for the fire control department. So many different stuff. And the team of engineers was working on designing the models, either by retro engineering or by working from scratch. And then we were starting the production. What did we manage to do? We printed about 20,000 objects during this period since the end of March. We settled the machines around the 6th or 7th of April. So we produced a huge amount of devices. We achieved some stuff, and we had some big failures as well. So we managed to produce lots of protection devices, various ones, lots of equipments. We dispatched them in many different hospitals. We dispatched them in also public institutions like schools, state schools, many different institutions. What the big failure of our project was the medical device design. We had lots of designs ongoing, but the reglementation was really too tough, despite my own experience with reglementation in medical devices. And despite the small facilitation that was done because of the crisis, the official body that regulates medical devices in France released a special note that was easing a little bit the production of medical devices. We didn't manage to have anything certified during this period. We have lots of projects going on. We have submitted lots of applications for validation, but we don't have anything done yet. And this was done. This was the consequence of two things. First, it's obviously quite difficult, but then obviously the public authorities were not really keen in getting into this kind of as quickly as that into this kind of project. For instance, the paperwork we have to do for one single medical device is about 200 pages of documents we have to provide. So we have all been working hard on it, but it's still going on. So during the time of the crisis, we couldn't achieve it. And one last thing I would like to add for the second phase of the project, now that the crisis is over, we own those 60 printers. The public hospitals own those 60 printers. So what we plan to do is to create a production center for the whole trust of Paris hospitals, some kind of innovation lab, and have a structure with full-time engineers employed that will interact with the doctors or the nurses or anyone who wants to make some innovation, and quickly build some prototypes that can be tested in the huge network of clinicians we have at APHP. This will require more regulatory work because it's not done, but I hope we will achieve it. And also, two last things. We have quite interesting openings now. We have a project going on in 5 different African countries where they want to copy and paste our initiative and benefit from our expertise. And this is going on quite well. And this center that we are going to set within APHP will also be a teaching center for everyone who is interested in design and in the printing techniques for people in France, but also in the course of those interactions with now African countries, but I hope with many other centers. So to say it in 2 words, it was quite an exciting project. We interacted with lots of different people, such as Thomas, for instance, or Guillaume and Philippe for emergency.io. Everything worked well, except I would say the medical device section. I'm not totally, I didn't give up, but it's even more difficult than what I thought at the beginning, and I knew it would be difficult. Well,
thank you very much, Roman, but everyone, for this very quick presentation for everyone, and let us enough time to open a discussion all together. So as everyone saw here, it's a lot of different organizations from different fields, from makers, hackers, researchers, hospitals, and everyone was like moving around, running his or her own initiative. And somehow I'm very interested to know more about how did you succeeded somehow in the middle of this crisis to converge together in the same direction? Because from what I know, during this period, you succeeded to open a chat where you started to discuss with each other. It happened in different time, but somehow you were going in the same direction. So I would like to invite you for some minute to discuss and give more information to online people about how you succeeded to match with each other. Anyone want to take the lead, guys?
Maybe I can quickly.
Huh? Constance?
Oh. Yeah, but I can really quickly take the floor, and then you're gonna go on and precise it. But the first thing I wanted to say about the going together movement of those initiatives is that from what I saw, there's 2 things. The first one is that we all had to have a first inner moment, creating our own dynamics or adapting what was already existing, and get together as small groups, looking at each other and say, okay, what are we going to do in our initiative? And in the second time, we could take a breath and look outside of what we were really doing and try and start to shake hands and start working together. And as we didn't all start at the same time and not from the same point, it didn't take us exactly the same amount of time to be able to turn to the outside and start giving those hands and eyes to the others. So this is the first thing I would like to say about those dynamics of getting together. And the second thing is that as I guess all of us said it by small points in our presentation, is that except I would like maybe say like except from Roman, but actually not completely, we were all part of a kind of the same world, and knowing each other, or if we didn't already knew really personally each other, we were one really close person away, one to the other. So the second thing that really eased the going together dynamic is that beside all those initiatives, there is a network of people that know and trust each other, and it really eased the dynamics. And I'll let you guys go on how we started working together.
Mathieu?
Yes,
Mathieu.
I agree with Constance that a part of the most of the panelists here, we knew each other before because we crossed on events and things like that. But what was very interesting and what we discovered during the crisis is that finally a lot of makers didn't knew about the communities that were existing, about the maker spaces, the FabLabs, and things like that. And a lot of those, what we call, even if the term is not very nice, independent makers, they gathered together in Facebook groups, like the one of Jan and Anthony. But at the beginning of the crisis, they were quite apart. There were no connection between the communities and those communities. And what was very interesting is that very quickly we saw initiatives trying to gather information, collect data, and some of them were doing more or less the same thing. And all together, I think all of us, we started to think, okay, we have to get together and to work together, all of us. And we started to make contact with the people we didn't know, and to reinforce the contact between the ones that knew each other. And what was very nice is that, except in a very few cases, we were all driven by the same goal to help and to make things to fight COVID, and this made the fact to work together very easy. So we gathered in chats, in Mattermost, WhatsApp groups, and things like that, and there were a lot of exchanges. For example, with the COVID 3D from Heliox that we didn't know. Okay, some of us were following her on YouTube, but she was not part of the community. But Dimitri from the Discord group knew her from YouTube. So it was quite easy to gather everybody around the table, and we made some video meetings. Because we could not meet in real life, but everybody was agreed to work together and to see how to share experiences and how to avoid to make the same work at the same time, but how to optimize that.
Yes. If I may say some words, I agree with everything that has been said. This is very interesting because we often hear about the entrepreneur spirit, the maker spirit, who are able to make things and create things and being very dynamic and so on. And this is really true. This proves that this is true. But what fuels the maker spirit is not necessarily the goal of making profit, personal profit. This is very interesting because everybody wanted to demonstrate their capacity to help others, to be somebody useful to the community. And this helped everybody to work together along the trust, which is very important, and the connections which already existed. But we will see that this convergence was also hampered a little bit by regulatory issues, which Roman evoked. We will talk about that later. But this is very interesting because it shows also the road we still have to walk in order to become fully efficient. And by the way, Anthony Sediki, who Dimitri, Heliox, and Jan, who are not there, they're symbolizing the independent makers. But you know, this is it's a confusion because everybody's knowing everybody and is working with everybody more or less. For instance, Jan Marshall is Fab manager. Dimitri was at the beginning one of the founders of French FabLab network. Catherine, which is Interview Edu, we're working together. Everybody's interdependent more than independent.
So if I try to make very short sum up about that, you succeeded, guys, to converge in the same direction because from what I understand, for instance, Thomas and Catherine knew each other before the crisis. But also, you didn't know each other before? You were not connected in Jogger somehow?
No, it's I posted something on Facebook like the 15th of March, and it was I shared on the RFF Facebook page the Italian valve story, and I started a conversation, and I said we might do something with our 3D printer, because I had a 3D printer. I said we have to use that. And Thomas was the first, and I was asking, we need a platform, an open source platform to gather and organize. And Thomas answered, he said vous, we didn't even say tu. And he said, if you want, you can have a place in Juggle. And when I came to Juggle, there was only 3 projects for the COVID, and they all were in English. And I asked Thomas, can I have a French project, French speaking project? And we thought it would be convenient, because we all know that French people are not very fond of, very at ease with speaking English.
So I will review my sum up, if you agree with this. So from what I understand, some of the guys here in this panel list knew each other before. I really would like to highlight a lot of events we had in France, like Maker Fairs, for instance, in Lille or Paris, but also some event like Open Vidui Camp or the October Make or Fab Festival that Constance mentioned before. So let's say 50%, maybe a bit more of this panel list already knew each other throughout past events. But also you succeeded, for those that don't know each other, to bring together, not for money, not for fighting for money, from what I understand, but for fighting for values and real needs from the field. And this is how you, for instance, Catherine, and I guess Thomas, you matched with each other, because you were going in the same direction. But from what I understand from Matej at the end of his speech, is about the limit of such collaboration. And it was about administration. Let's say the system were maybe not ready to have such a collaboration at the national level with so many distributed actors. So I would like to jump to the next question. And
can I just say one thing about the because I'm not from this world at all, so I didn't know anyone at the beginning of I don't know many people. So yes, the reason why I'm here is thanks to Philippe Cochin, who is quite involved in the maker world, and he was one of the first participants of the project. I just wanted to say two quick words. First, the project we did, you told about the free initiatives. So it was, what we did was fully free for the public hospitals, because all the money was coming from private. So everything we distributed was for free for all the public institutions. So all the 20,000 devices we produced were given out for free, and all the designs are available or will be available open source on our website. So they're not always useful, but still we'll put the STLs online. And the last thing I would like to add, it's a bit a negative note. When I was interacting with my institutions, I didn't even think about mentioning there was a component with makers in the project, because that would have been completely misunderstood by my institution. They would have thought it's a geeky thing with uncontrolled people and everything. So everything I presented to my institution, APHP, was a clean, neat project with a well-defined contractor who was a startup, who was doing all the designs. And I couldn't even explain them that we were using stuff like Juggle or relying on the ideas coming from makers and everything, because this would have been way too complicated. But I hope that in the second phase of the project, when we'll properly settle an innovation lab for all the hospitals, then we will seriously interact and build long-term projects. So, but they're not ready, obviously, for this.
So it was basically my next question about how collaboration happened between the makers movement or your initiative, guys, and the institution or policy makers. From what I understand, it's like make first and then start to discuss. So is there any other organization here that would like to share their experience with institution or policy makers?
I can actually speak for own experience. We were very fortunate to make a partnership with the AXA Research Fund very early on, and that enabled us to support the projects much further than we were able to before. So we created what we call juggle micro grants, and so projects could just apply and document the projects, and at the end the committee would peer review the projects and the documentation, and if the project was considered impactful and feasible, then the project would gain access to a grant up to 3,000 euros. It was automatic. And that helped a lot of projects to move forward. And the Accelerator Research Fund is a big institution. It's funding normally only universities for doing research. It just happened that we've been working with them for a year on another subject, but they reacted very fast when they saw the crisis.
But this is a private institution.
It's a private institution, that's right. But we did the same with AFD, Agence Française de Développement.
Okay.
Yeah, which is also supporting us, but not for an action specifically for the African continent.
A story that might be interesting to relate to our public is that at the very beginning of the crisis, the French FabLab network issued a call for the makers. Because most of us, or some of us, are closely related. For instance, I'm teaching for senior nurses in APHP also, so I have many friends in the hospital field, and we heard about the fact that most of them were fearing that they would lack protecting devices. So we talked around us and say, okay, let's call the makers in order to mobilize them to make what they've already done. And discussing with many makers, we heard that they were already implementing their skills in order to do that. And at one point, our vice president, Hugh, told us, guys, let's be careful. We need specifications, we need accreditations, we must be very prudent, because there are lives in danger, so we cannot do anything anyway. And so at this point, we wrote a letter to the government, to the Ministry of Health, to the ARS, so regional health agencies who are managing all that, and saying, okay, guys, we have many makers on the field who are already beginning to build and distribute protection devices. We are at one point, the nurses, the doctors are calling us, and like 100 mails a day. We need this, we need that and that. And if we say no, somebody else will do it anyway. So we cannot control the movement. Nobody's controlling the movement. The movement is already on. So what you guys, the government, you need to do is to regulate, to specificate, to give guidelines, okay? So tell us, what should we tell to the makers in order to organize this, in order to everything goes well, okay? No news for 1 month.
Blackouts.
And 1 month later, we got a letter saying, okay, thank you for your mail. It was nice. Remember to wash your hands, to cough on your, and so on. So this was very funny, if I can say so. And at that point, the board decided to make an open tribune explaining all that, because we already took the measures. So we were contacted by the army. In some regions, we organized the dispatching of the shields with the help of the army. In some regions, we dispatched the field with the help of the pharmacists and so on. So was already organized without the help of the official institutions.
Yeah, I can add something on this. So this raises a few questions. So first, unfortunately, the people you were interacting with and I was interacting with had absolutely, no idea what 3D printing is. So they didn't really know what they were talking about. And this, I noticed it quite quickly, even with people who were supposed to take decisions on our work, who were supposed to be the specialized pharmacists who are dealing with like medical device supply for APHP. They had absolutely no idea of the potentialities of what we could do. They thought it was like it was made to print, I don't know, gimmicks and the stuff for computer games. That's what they thought. So, and that's the first thing. And then the second thing is that it was a bit more political. It was quite impossible for them to admit that there was a shortage, even though there was a shortage.
Yes.
Giving those kind of recommendations would be like the official acknowledgement that there was a big issue, and this was not possible either. And it's not directly the fault of ARS. It came from higher in the government. They couldn't really publicly make the publicity that there were issues in supplies for protection devices. So there were those two issues: the incompetence and political blockages. But at the end, what happened even for medical devices, that there are lots of them that are delivered to hospitals, good things and really nasty stuff as well, and they're quite randomly used by many departments. That's what happened for real. Like really wrong stuff were used. I don't think anyone got killed, but probably stuff didn't work. And the quite good things as well were delivered, and it just went on with no regulation and in a big mess. That was the consequence of the fact they didn't answer to our. We tried really early as well, from the beginning of, and from the 25th of March, we were talking nearly daily with the regulatory authorities, but it took them more than a month to react. And their main reaction was that you should stop because it's illegal. That was the main reaction.
I will just interrupt. We have like 10 more minutes, something like this. Okay. So I will jump to the last question. I will not. Either if you want to discuss about certification, maybe you want to go a bit more about certification. So if someone can take the lead about that, normalization and certification, and then I have a very last question, and we have 10 minutes. So how, guys, did you deal with such a certification?
I can start, and then you build on this. Well, there was a policy that was passed by the government on the 23rd of April. That was trying to not regulate, but to loosen up a little bit the regulation, but pushing for people to conform to the regulation, although the regulation was a little bit loosened. And it started to be very difficult for all the volunteers that had worked for months, and with their own money, they were providing materials. And so some started to get scared that they would be doing something illegal, and they start to be disappointed too, because they thought it was some kind of treason for their work. But what we all of us, that was one of the first thing that the second thing that brought us together, because we felt the need to tackle this issue, and we were also called by some of the regulation agencies, because they were conscious that they had to work with us. So we had some very strange calls and very constructive calls too, and we tried to work all together to explain and be more pedagogical and try to negotiate some part of the certification. And it didn't go well or went bad. It was like I feel it's a bit in the middle. It's we managed to keep people going, and some quit it because of the regulation policies. And it just shows us that there's a big work to do, and it can be. To me, I feel it's a sign that the maker movement reached some kind of maturity, because it's like time to get the license to drive, like. So now you get to take the code and everything.
So we have five less minutes. Matej, very fast.
Sorry, Alex. Yeah, I would like to add something very shortly. Is that the classical business development model in the internet is and in innovation in general is distributing something new for almost free, killing all the concurrents, and then being the monopolist in the market. So the makers, they distribute everything, their skills, their work, their time for free. but they don't want to be monopolists. They want to be a community. So the problem is that now, if they continue distributing everything for free, that they will kill themselves. And the problem is to build some kind of economical model in order to allow the society to take benefit from all these skills, and allowing them also to continue living a normal living.
Thank you very much, Matej. I will conclude this panel list with design that all of you guys, with the help of some friends, we did. And then Mike, you will conclude this live. So I will share my screen. So it will not be a question. I will ask the question and answer the question, if you're okay with this, to go a bit fast. So the last question was this one: what the makers movement can learn from this experience in France. So as you can see on my screen, there is a lot of initiative, and what somehow we started to see is the open health process that you started to develop during the crisis. So I let people just have a look on that, but basically they can see it remotely. So let's say it's like a dream. We want to go in this direction. This is not what all our initiative, we succeeded to go during the crisis, but it was the expected point at the end with all of this organization. So what the makers movement in France can learn from this experience, it's to better understand what should be tomorrow an open health process, including, of course, the makers movement. So thank you very much, and I let Mike maybe finish with something.
Yeah, thanks, Alex, and thank you to all the panelists. I really appreciate you guys' participation and very interesting presentations. I'm actually really impressed with the level of organization and professionalism that all of your groups and your initiatives have really shown here, and it gives me hope for ways that this can influence other groups and communities to help affect change in the face of this pandemic. So I had two quick questions that I actually wanted to throw out to the group real quick. One thing that's really current right now here in California, where I'm located, is a reopening of our economy, and we're seeing pretty much all of the different business types now being allowed to reopen, and for the public to have access to them, from salons to gyms and fitness clubs and schools, with certain restrictions. But I'm curious if this is a similar thing that's happening in France, and if you guys have concerns about a reopening at this point.
Anyone?
I mean,
do you mean? Oh, go on, Thomas.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same. We've been the confinement has ended, I think, about three weeks ago, something like that, 3-4 weeks ago. And when you look at the numbers, the number of cases are really not getting most normal, so our ability to test also people has increased a lot, so we have a better ability to follow what's going on. We don't see everyone with a mask, but still we have a significant number of people with masks, so that's pretty good. I would say that I'm not being concerned. I was a bit at the beginning of the confinement, but just looking at the numbers, it's quite reassuring. However, what's not reassuring is the global situation. And when you look at the global numbers at the world level, the number of cases, daily cases, are actually increases. They passed 100,000 cases, new cases every day now, and increasing still. So yeah, it's I would say like France, Italy are now actually in much better shape than they were before.
That's good to hear. And the other thing that I just wanted to wrap up with one last thought from the panelists about where we go from here. I know we've touched on that a little bit here, but to encapsulate it in a thought, both with the COVID response, but also just from the maker community side of it. What are your thoughts?
I have a thought I'd like to share on that. It is that all this crisis, of course, is deeply unfortunate and full of fear and sadness, but there is always a piece of light if you want to look at it. And my feeling is that in this situation, a lot of our life were on hold, and in the maker movement, a huge part of the energy that is put in is a volunteer energy. That a lot of people, they are bringing on their heart and their willing and their generosity into the maker movement, locally, globally, linking it. And during the crisis, a lot of those people, including the people around the table, had their life somewhat on hold. And everybody, even though we were physically distanciated, we were definitely timely connected, and we had the time to work a lot and really hard day and night on how to deal for the crisis. But I guess it also gave us the opportunity to do a huge step on how to work together. And there is a lot of subjects that we're planning in the air for a long time, and we were thinking we must work with those people and work on that and better understand their vision and better include those kind of people. And I feel like having the necessity to work together really fast made us take a huge step that I'm pretty sure and hoping that we're going to just keep working on and have it as a huge connection and help for the future and for what is coming on.
Yeah, that's great.
Bertrand?
Yes. Oh, sorry. I just want to say that it's a point break because for most of people, the makers are funny guys who make funny activity in a maker fair, but they have proved that they are developer and they are more faster than company, more faster than government. So they have really proved to everyone that they can do something for change the future, something like that. And it was a nice opportunity, finally. Thank you, COVID. Now we are stronger than before, and I hope for the future.
Yeah, you could look at the silver lining of all of this is it has, even though it's forced us to all be locked into our homes and socially distanced, it's also brought us together in a really interesting and surprising way.
Mathieu,
any other thoughts?
Mathieu wanted to say something very fast, very short, please. Mathieu?
Yeah, I wanted to say the same thing than the guy before me. But on the bad side, to come back to this open health process, is that we had the luck during the COVID that the regulation problems stopped the movement, but it was too late. The movement made what it had to do. So we solved the problem before the regulation stopped us. But what we have to do now is to prevent this to happen again. So to work on this open health process, and it's a very big and hard work to be sure that if this happens again, and this lasts longer, for example, that the regulation problem will not halt the movement and the initiatives. So I think this is the big task we have to tackle now, is to continue this movement, to make it clear that, okay, the makers, they can do things. We proved it, and now it's visible. But that it's not only to build things, it's to build process, open source plans and things that can be shared, and that we have to have a regulation system that is faster and that allows us to continue this type of things.
Or we have to be faster than regulation.
Yes.
It's another way to do it.
Yeah. And Alex, I see your note here in the chat about this is the first of global crises that's to come. I think that's a good point. We have demonstrated that there is a lot of effectiveness in this community and its ability to respond rapidly, much more rapidly than other organizations. And I think that it's been a good training round for how to respond for the next one, which hopefully doesn't happen for a long time, but more than likely something will come up at some point. But with that, I do want to say thanks again to all the panelists. Thank you, Alex, for organizing all of this. It's been a really great and engaging conversation. I also want to thank all of the participants that have been watching here in Zoom and participating in the chat, and everybody that's watching on YouTube and any of the other channels that you might be seeing this on. Thank you so much. If you want to see more of the coverage that Make is doing regarding the COVID response, what we call Plan C, this community response to the pandemic, you can go to our webpage. We've got to actually have a special place within our website that we've designated for all of our coverage of the COVID content, which is at makezine.com/tags/plan-C. And we'll put that into the description. You can also see in the newest issue of Make Magazine stories of different makers and groups from around the world that are working on their response to this. And I encourage you to stay involved, to stay active, and to do your part to help out, because this is a global issue that is really something that we can all help with, even if it's just making sure you're wearing your face masks.
And just one word on behalf of everyone here, but also from Spain and Germany, because we were connected with you thanks to these guys that we visited some time ago. Thank you very much, Mike, to do this such an international connection. So it's a great opportunity to have such a time nationally, but also more globally. So thanks, guys. Thanks very much.
And you're welcome. And
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.